Thanks everyone for your patience. Our executive went a little longer, but we were discussing important things as always. So we're reconvening the meeting. Can everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to announcements, this Friday is our last night in the park. I hope everybody can come join us. It's from 5 to 7 p.m. We are now going to open to the public for items on the agenda. Can I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are now open to the public for items on the agenda. Seeing no members from the public, can I have a motion to close to the public?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for the August 10th, 2023 regular session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Have to abstain.
Yes, thank you. Moving on to specials, discussions, and presentations. I wanted to acknowledge Mike and Tara for being here tonight because it is back to school night at East Amwell School, and I know it's a commitment to be here and do this instead of being at the back to school night, so I appreciate you both being here in attendance tonight. So.
The same goes for you as well. So thank you as well. Thanks, Jen.
And I also wanted to acknowledge, it's in our correspondence, but we got a letter from Amy Valera at East Amwell School for how well the summer playground ran this year. And she specifically acknowledged Katie Puglia for everything she did. And I just want to acknowledge Ms. Puglia, Ms. Ledbetter, Ms. Savali and DiVincenzo, Ms. Openhauser, and Ms. Zengel for how well they ran summer playground. I know Tara, Mike, and I all had our kids go to it. It's great. They have a good time. It's a great deal for what's offered by the town, so I just want to thank them for how well it was run, and I appreciate Ms. Valera sending us that letter.
And thanks to, I'm sorry, Jenna, and thanks to Natalie Nelson
Oh,
and
yes.
Parks and Rec, because I think I know Natalie worked really closely with Katie as well, so special thanks to that committee also.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, very true. So moving on to our next special presentation, we have Ms. Fullerton here from the Hunterdon County Agricultural Development Board. If you'd like to come forward.
I'm hoping there wasn't much to say, since this is your final approval of this project, and we do have from the Amwell Valley Conservancy as well, if he wants to join, since it's really their property. Does the committee have any questions about this preservation effort?
So you're here to talk about the preservation effort that we already agreed to preserve
Right. This is just
on
the
that.
final approval. So we went through preliminary approval in November,
Mhm.
and that's just when basically the township and the county made an agreement, and then the county goes through the process of getting the appraisals with the state and getting a certified market value. Once the certified market value was determined, then we come back for final approval. And that's actually happening tonight. That's why I'm here and not Bob Hornsby, who's the actual administrator of the CADB, because they are having their meeting in about 30 minutes, and he wanted to make sure he could run that meeting. And but they will be approving this final approval as well and taking it to the commissioners. And we are looking for your final approval agreement to pay the 20%, and then we get the 60% from the state.
Yeah, if I may, Jen, I think for members of the public who are listening, that's the salient point, I think, here. It's important to do the preservation, and two, the township's only incurring 20% of the cost because of SADC and cost sharing. So it makes it affordable and a good thing to do.
It is. That 20% really helps, and it is from your open space trust fund. It's not a general fund. It's already earmarked for open space.
And this is connecting some other lands that are already
Exactly.
preserved,
It's
right?
basically filling in, not quite a donut, but it's filling in a land, as an area that, that will make an entire block preserved. And we'd
Mhm.
love to have that, to see that fully preserved area, that's really feels an accomplishment.
That's great.
We do have maps. I thought these were included, but should I be handing these out? Do you have maps of what we're looking at?
I've seen it. I mean, I don't know if anybody else on the committee wants to look at.
These? Do I
No.
need to get- Okay, I thought these would be good, so I was like, I'm gonna give these to you. I'm sorry, I thought.
Probably
Ross had
leave
Yeah, it's there.
them.
Thank you.
Well, I apologize. I thought you had seen it all.
Thank you.
Everything is here.
Let's see, I
Thank you.
think I've got just enough and not for Linda. We'll have
That's
to
okay. That's all right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry, how many acres is it again?
Let's see. Well, the survey that was done, let's see, it was estimated 16.7, but let's see, yes, so it came to a total of 16, I believe it's still 16.7, but as part of the final, actually this should have done, the survey has already been done, so this should be the final map, so it should be 16.7 acres in total.
Great.
If I could
Oh, yeah.
just try, the survey has not been
Oh,
completed.
it has not been?
I believe they are going out for proposals
Okay,
currently.
thank you.
So, once that's done, the final number will be
Yes.
adjusted based upon the results of the survey.
Yes, you can't have the final number without the survey. That's a very important thing for SADC because they pay you down to the very last bit of what is preserved land. So they have very strict standards for surveys. So I would expect that this amount in the resolution would be the not to exceed amount.
Okay. I don't have any questions or comments. I don't know if anybody else does on the committee.
I don't, I'm in favor. I'm gonna
Yeah.
pass this out so the members of the general public.
Here, you
can
wanna-
have it.
Thank you.
Anybody want a copy?
I apologize, I guess we weren't thinking that we needed a bigger presentation.
No, it's fine.
No, this is on the north side of, this is the north side of Little.
Okay.
So, it's this parcel here, and this over here. Well, 202 pretty much goes east and west. This is the north side of 202. So it's these building lots here on frontage road, along with the parcels to the southbound side of the
Right.
horse hospital.
Should have had a presentation,
No, it's fine.
like a projector.
Did you have anything you wanted to add since you're
I'm
here?
David Stonehoff, I'm the treasurer of Animal Valley Conservancy, and we're here to, just support the application. These are parcels, I believe, these parcels in question were purchased when we did the last round of preservation about 20-plus years ago. These parcels were purchased with those proceeds and preserved internally by Animal Valley Conservancy. And at this point, we have the opportunity, we identified another parcel, two parcels in West Amwell. I became treasurer about 2.5 years ago, audited the multiple tax bills we happen to have and reconciled everything and found that these parcels were still at that point unpreserved and consistent with our intent for the club was to expand our preservation and be able to tie in these contiguous properties minimum to be considered, but since we're able to do this, as well as also tie them into a larger contiguous preserve farm, I'm a lifelong Hunterdon County resident. Family's been in the county for 8, 9, 10 generations, and I like things looking just the way they've always looked. And maintaining that streetscape along the 202 corridor, I think is real valuable.
Yeah, we do too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments? Good. Okay. Well, thank you for coming here and talking to us and everything. We have it on for resolution later on in our agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for coming.
I think it's him, but we're still on. Yeah. Yeah, I think he's from the fire department.
Mr. Bailey, are you here to speak about the fire company? I'm going to go out of order and allow you to come for a special discussion now.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Craig Bailey. I'm the treasurer of the Antelope Valley Fire Company, also commissioner of the fire district. So we wanted to make a request to be exempt from the permitting fees to replace our generator. It broke a couple weeks ago.
So if I guess
We
I'll
need to
speak
get
to that.
another one.
So
We
what-
are a shelter, I believe, for the township. So in the event of some kind of catastrophe within the township, we would house, I guess, as many residents as we would be able to. And the generator would supply electricity not only for fire department purposes, but also for the community.
Do you have showers there? If you're a shelter people, because I think that's the
No shade.
concern. Yeah. Okay. I know it's off topic,
Showers
but that's what.
create other issues.
So if I could speak on this, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Max Jason, the chief, gave me a call and asked if the township committee could waive the permit fees for a new generator. I looked into it with township, and the suggestion was for you to come before the committee and make a formal request, and the committee can vote on it. I heard back from construction, because that's done in West Amwell. Their answer was the township committee has to pass a resolution. There might be some state fees that are gonna have to be paid, that either comes out of your tax, but, you guys tax the fire district, or we tax to raise money, so,
Well, it's a little nuance between what the district does and what the company does.
okay,
So the building is owned by the fire company.
okay,
So the district would not, the district is not paying for anything associated with replacement of the generator.
okay,
That's all the fire company. So, as you know, we're nonprofit.
right,
So the fire district generally owns mostly the equipment and the apparatus.
okay,
The building, other sundry items keeping it going, the electricity, all that is paid for by the fire company.
okay. So I'm in support of, obviously, waiving, somehow you guys not paying the fees. That part of it I didn't know. The state fees, it'll probably have to come out of this end, because I believe we don't have any control if there's any state fees.
That's understandable.
It'll have to be covered, and
Mhm.
I think we're talking hundreds, not thousands, or even maybe less. So it's to have a generator, you need a generator, and I don't believe that you should have to take it out of your donations to cover it, so.
And Mike, is this like a building permit fee or construction permit fee? Like
Well,
what-
they're putting a new generator in, so
Right,
whatever.
what kind of permit is
what
required
ki-
and what
I don't know,
fee?
what kind of permits you need for a generator?
I'm assuming just well, you'd probably have to have an electrical permit. We have to run a new gas line, so there might be a permit associated with that as well.
Okay.
I don't know if Elizabethtown Gas would be procuring that, or if they would require us to. And probably just a general construction permit to make sure the pad.
You have a
is the
generator now,
appropriate
right?
thickness.
You have one now?
Well, we did, we just got rid of it a week
Okay.
ago. We scrapped it.
Yeah, so I mean, there's gonna be fees involved, but.
So as I understand it, it would be the construction permit fee
Right.
and the electrical permit fee, because those are the only ones that are, would be to us.
So that's, yeah,
Right.
construction zoning office said in order
Right.
to make any kind of movement on this, we would need to pass a township resolution,
Right.
and they
And you-
wouldn't collect the fee from him.
Right.
But they did mention that if there's a state fee, that's gonna need to get paid, which I don't know what permits
You can be
require.
specific in the motion and say you're waiving any municipal fees
Right.
that the construction department may charge for the replacement of the generator.
Are you also asking if there's a state fee for us to cover it, or would you be in a position to cover any state fees? I just
I mean, if
simply
you're
don't know if there's
talking-
state permit fees.
If it's a couple $100, it's probably easier if we just pay it, quite frankly.
Okay.
You know, than having the town do it.
Okay.
I don't know what state fee would be.
That's the only,
Yeah.
that's what
I don't
construction,
either.
yeah, they
Yeah.
just
Right.
responded back
And
that there could be state
Construction
fees.
office fees are done by percentage of the
Yeah.
cost
Mhm.
of the project, so it's, you know.
Yeah, so like I said, that's all they said. If there's a state fee
There's a
involved, they
DCA fee.
wouldn't be able to waive that, but.
I'm sorry?
ECA fee. I think part of the permit fee is.
I don't know,
Might
but
be
that's,
some
but that's not within
portion
our
of it.
jurisdiction anyway, right? So I mean, the thing that is our jurisdiction is the construction office, so,
That's
uh,
it.
you know, I'd be willing to waive that fee if that's a significant thing. We should just, I mean, I don't know if others are gonna come asking for waivers, but I think this is an appropriate one.
And I understand from talking to the fire chief that this would be consistent with what's been done in the past. When they've asked for, any kind of work to be done, they've always asked the committee to, maybe not recent past, but in years past.
Yeah,
that-
it's probably predates my time, which is the last, 14, 15 years.
Yeah, so I think this is just consistent with that tradition from when I'm.
Probably when they built the building in '04, maybe.
It could be.
That's possible.
So I'm in support of doing that, however, we have to write it up, I think that that's a worthwhile cause.
Jenna, do we have a proposal for this already, or do we need to make a motion?
We
or-
need to make a motion.
And do we need to hear from the public as well?
No.
No?
So, should I make a motion?
Yeah,
Sure.
please.
Okay, I make a motion that the committee make a resolution to waive any of our local construction permit fees for the fire department, for this particular project.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Great, yeah. Do
Thank
we need
you.
to do a
Thank
ro-
you.
do we need to do a roll
So
call,
what I
Linda?
would suggest is you
Do we need a roll
make
call?
your,
it?
apply
need a
for
roll
your
call
permits
thing?
as
We can do one
needed, and
Case.
when
Yeah.
it comes to a bill, I don't know exactly how that works out, but bring it,
Right.
get a hold of
Well,
me
I'm
or.
sure we could just get a copy of the resolution.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think if you send that,
We'll
you send
email
that to the
Gail.
construction office, they'll
Yeah.
have it, and then they just won't charge it.
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll let Gail know.
I'm just gonna do roll call. Mr. Dendis,
yes.
Mr. Mills.
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Mayor Casper Bloom.
Yes,
All right, thanks, good luck.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your service, too.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna move on to, standing committee reports. We got a recent application for the Board of Health. I know the, application was just passed out recently to members on the committee. It's to have David Wang Iverson be appointed as an alternate number one. He was on the committee for, I think, like 15 years before, and he, wants to be back on it, and he's talked to, Tracy about it. She's our chair. And I know it's a smaller committee, so they could need more people to make sure they have a quorum and everything. So, I was looking to have a motion to confirm this appointment.
I'm so moved.
Yeah, I support that.
All in favor?
All right.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm gonna move on to ordinance number 23-10. That's a second reading, public hearing. Linda, can you please read by title?
An ordinance granting renewal of municipal consent to Comcast of Central New Jersey LLC to construct, connect, operate, and maintain a cable television and communication system in the Township of East Amwell, County of Hunterdon, State of New Jersey.
So, this ordinance is basically, what it says in the title. It's just renewing consent to have them, Comcast operate here. I think as we said before, when we had the first hearing and discussed it, there's not much we can do as a town. If we were to deny it, they could go to BPU and it would be granted. So, our hands are kind of tied. So, before we have a public hearing on it, can I have a motion to amend the ordinance from the first reading?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Just by way of explanation, the ordinance as introduced was sent down to the Board of Public Utilities. They responded with some comments. They responded on September 6th, so we incorporated, the few comments they had were not material, they were really typographical in nature, and they're incorporated into the final draft of the ordinance that you're adopting tonight.
Thank you, Frank.
Mayor, I do have two questions. Should I ask Frank now, or do you want to open to the public first, or?
You can ask Frank now. That's fine.
So, Frank, I know you worked on this. So in section 14B of the franchise ordinance, when it says that the company, Cablevision, shall provide, quote, cable television, end quote, to the township building, to all township buildings, does that include internet, or is
Well,
that just television?
That's just television. And Jenna and I had discussed the providing internet, which we were told under the former company, I believe it was Patriot Media, they were providing internet free of cost and would continue to do so. But we've yet to confirm that that's actually occurring. So it's the Comcast position is they don't offer free internet, they offer free cable. But they did tell us that they would respect the previous arrangement with their predecessor, which was to give us the internet here at the municipal building. So that's what we're going to be following up on.
And is that something that's going to go into the franchise ordinance?
No.
And how do we make it binding?
It's not. It's their, number one, they have a policy, they don't offer municipalities internet. They won't put it in the franchise agreement. But the understanding, we've been told and we've been promised by them that they will honor their commitment to continue what Patriot was doing for us.
Well, was there a lapse then? Because we're currently not getting it at our municipal building.
That's what we had trouble determining, because once we were told that, we went and checked and said, where's the free cable? The free internet, and we couldn't find it. So somewhere along the line, there may have been a lapse. Somewhere along the line, there may have been a discontinuation of the free service. I don't know. We have not been able to determine that as of yet, but we're going to try to track it down.
This representation from cable Comcast that that they will honor what their predecessor was providing, namely internet, was that oral or was that in writing?
It's in email communications with
Okay.
Mr. Clifton of their office. So it is.
Okay.
We do have writings
Okay.
evidencing that.
I know Mr. Clifton, and if you have it in writing from him, I feel more reassured because it's not in the franchise document. My second question is section 19, competitive equity. I just didn't understand what the provision meant. It says, if the township grants municipal consent for any other entity, the, quote, company may substitute such language that is more favorable or less burdensome for the comparative provision of this ordinance, subject to NJAC 14:17-6.7. Did you know
Well,
what that 6.7 is?
The likelihood of another company coming into the town and seeking to construct alongside of Comcast their own cable network is very something very slim and rare, because we are not a densely populated municipality. So I would say the likelihood of that section having any applicability is probably
Don't we
remote.
have Verizon for FiOS though now in some portions of the town?
If we do, Verizon owns whatever equipment and wiring is there. It's theirs. But this is if someone was to come in with another cable franchise, that language, I'm sure, has some relevance to that process. But to be perfectly honest with you, I shared the same confusion as you when reading it as to how does it apply in this particular, in real layman's terms.
I mean, does Verizon or has Verizon obtained a municipal consent from this township, or do they operate with some other authority?
I think they operate separately. They're not a cable TV franchise such as
I thought they are, I thought they are a CATV. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure because, I mean, knowing that the southern portions of town that overlap with Mercer County have Verizon, it would seem to me that maybe there is another municipal consent. And if there is, then this really vague language which says they may substitute such language that is more favorable and less burdensome for them. I don't even know what that means at all, right? I
We
mean,
could-
they change any provision of the contract to any degree.
All
It just
within the realm of BPU supervision, so I can speak to BPU about that and get you a more firmer answer.
Okay. It just seemed like a kind of a crazy thing to have for a contract or an ordinance where they're gonna substitute some language. I'd like to have a provision where we could substitute some language too.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the mutual provision, but, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to open to the public for questions or comments on this ordinance only?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
We are open to the public for comments on this ordinance only. Mr. Wolf?
Hi,
Hello.
Rick Wolf, 21 Rynearson Road here in East Amwell Township. No comments, just Dante, I'll answer your question. The provision you read is called the most favored nation provision. It's actually not uncommon in contract law. And basically, if I sign a contract with Jenna agreeing to sell her widgets for $10 a widget, she may put in the contract a provision that says, if you enter into a contract with somebody else to sell them widgets for less than $10 a widget, I get that same price. So if I contract with Dante to sell for $9 a widget, then the provision in our contract that says $10 a widget is amended to say $9 a widget. So the provision you read, basically what it says is if we give a better deal to another operator, we have to give that same deal to Comcast.
Do you know if the municipality in the past has given or what authority it may have given to Verizon?
I do not. I am not aware of Verizon having Vios in East Amwell Township. When I was on the committee, in the early years I was on the committee, there were discussions with Verizon, and the response back was, we ain't spending the money on Vios in East Amwell Township. There's not enough population density to make it worthwhile. That may have changed, but at least early on, it wasn't in the cards.
Just to follow up on it, we got a letter, Jenna got a letter
Yeah.
from Verizon telling us that their ratio of or the number of homes in the township that they provide landlines to has dropped below 51%. And they were invoking some state statute that allows them to not pay property tax on their equipment based on that number. Now, we've sought to verify what they're basing that. I mean, it very well may be true, and the statute does say that, but we've tried to verify where they're getting their information from. But they're telling us that the number of landlines in East Amwell for Verizon is a declining number. More people are going to cell service.
I'm sure that's true.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
I think Verizon too, even though they provide TV, I think it's still part of streaming internet. Whereas this cable is like a cable with Comcast, which is probably why they didn't have to do a franchise
maybe.
agreement,
Hmm.
is my guess.
Yep, might be.
I don't know because I have Comcast. I have Xfinity, so. Is there anyone else from the public? Francis?
Francis Gavigan, just one question, are they giving us anything other than the central digit for the privilege to operate here? Are they giving the township any money?
Well, they're not,
So how much?
they're not required to give us anything. We tried to get equipment, the mayor tried to get, routers, new equipment out of them. But their position is if we do for one, we do for all. So they're rather kind of stingy on what they're willing to give. And our leverage is not that great, quite frankly.
And what's the 2% of gross profits?
For what?
The 2% of gross profits, I don't have the document open here, let me see if I
Let
find
me
it.
see that. Yeah, whatever the terms are in this agreement, and these agreements are, you could pull 10 of these from other municipalities. They're pretty standard. You're not going to see really any variation in what they're giving.
So the franchise fee in section 5, company shall, during each year of operation under the consent, pay the township 2% of the gross revenues from all recurring charges in the nature of subscription fees paid by subscribers.
That's the fee that we're receiving.
Yeah, so I mean, I think
That's
that
it.
goes
So
to,
there is a fee that you
yeah,
get.
I think that goes to your question, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Is that anything that is a line item anywhere as to how much is coming in or not coming in? Because people are dropping cable all over the place too. I know I've enjoyed firing them.
I don't know. I'd have to look at the
I have to look at the
doc.
budget, yeah.
Yeah, you have to peek at the budget, I don't look offhand.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing no one else from the public, can I have a motion to close to the public?
So moved.
Can I have a
Second?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to adopt ordinance number 23-09?
Sorry, that should be 10.
Oh, sorry. Can I have a motion to adopt amended ordinance 23-10?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Dendis?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mayor Casper Bloom?
Yes.
You got moved, John.
You forgot.
That's not right.
We're going to table ordinance number 23-07. And we're going to move on to ordinance number 23-11. Linda, can you please read by title?
An ordinance of the Township of East Amwell, County of Hunterdon, State of New Jersey, authorizing and encouraging electric vehicle supply service equipment, EVSE, and make-ready parking spaces pursuant to PL 2021 C 171.
So this is an ordinance that sets forth procedures for installing of electric vehicle supply service equipment and make-ready parking spaces and establishes associated regulations and other standards within the town. This was a recommendation that came from our master plan that the town adopt this ordinance. This ordinance is almost completely language from state law. There was a little change to it for one section. So what we're going to do, hopefully, is do this first reading tonight, and then on Monday at the planning board meeting, the planning board will review it and make sure it follows the recommendations set forth from our master plan, and then it would come back to us for a public hearing. So can I have a motion to introduce ordinance number 23-11 with a public hearing date of October 12th, 2023?
So moved.
No, second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So we're going to move on to the consent agenda. I just wanted to, before we vote on the consent agenda, I just want to note that we got our municipal audit back. The town gets audited every year, looking at finances and everything. And it's quite a long document, as everybody can see. So I'm really happy to report that there was a few comments and no recommendations, which means we're doing really well as a town. So I was very happy to see that. So can I have a motion to approve consent agenda resolutions 2023-114 to 2023-118?
So moved?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Dendis?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mayor Casper Bloom?
Yes. Moving on to our other resolutions. So our first resolution, 2023-119, that's the final approval for acquisition of those two lots that Ms. Fullerton spoke about. Tara and John and I already had approved that as our previous committee last year, that we wanted to move forward with preserving this. And so this gives them the final approval to move forward. And these are blocks 8, lot 25, 26, and 26.02. So can I have a motion to approve resolution 2023-119?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Dendis?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mayor Casper-Bloom?
Yes. And I'm very happy we were able to vote and do that to preserve more land here in East Amwell and keep it green and rural. Because I know that's important to all of us. Moving forward on the next two resolutions, 23-120 and 23-121. As part of our master plan, we also had to update our farmland preservation plan. Some work was done on this last year, and then it kind of stalled. So we've been pushing to move it forward this year. The cost to complete it is $10,000, and by passing these two resolutions, we're going to get that $10,000 covered. So it won't be any additional cost to our residents, and we'll be able to move forward with the farmland preservation, which is also really important to keep East Amwell looking green. So I'm happy we're able to get funding for this and move forward with it. So for resolution 2023-120, this is authorization to execute documents and agreements for the farmland preservation plan with the County of Hunterdon. Because the County of Hunterdon is going to give half and the SADC is going to give the other half. So can I have a motion to approve resolution 23-120?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Dendis?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mayor Casper-Bloom?
Yes. So for resolution 23-121, this is for the other $5,000 to come from the SADC, and this is just giving us authorization to move forward with applying for that. And Mike Mills, myself, and Megan Stanley, our planner, already had a kickoff meeting with them, so we're moving along. So can I have a motion to approve resolution 23-121?
So moved.
Count that as a second, too.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Dendis?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mayor Casper-Bloom?
Yes. I'm now moving on to resolution 23-122. This has not gone out on public agenda because this is something we were discussing in executive session. As some may be aware, Joe retired as one of our DPW guys, and he was the supervisor under Jason. So we're happy to report that we're going to be promoting Travis to that position now, with an hourly rate of $27 an hour, and that's going to go into effect September 16th. Travis interviewed for the job. Jason recommended him, so we're really happy he wants to stay in East Amwell and keep working for DPW. He's a great employee to have, just like they all are, so.
And Jenna, since the members of the committee had the chance to interview
Oh, yes.
both candidates, we wanted to say both candidates actually were very fine, and we appreciate the work they're doing and how they work so well collegiately together. So I didn't want the other candidate to be left out.
Yes, thank you for that, and thank you for taking the time to interview, too, everybody. Can I have a motion to approve resolution 23-112?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Dendis?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mayor Casper-Bloom?
Yes. And then I'm going to add resolution 2023-123. Do you want to discuss the hour and a half, the 8.5 hour day versus the 8 hour day, that we're going to make that change for DPW?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting that.
Oh.
So one of the things in the interest of staying competitive in this workforce, it came to my attention that our DPW workers are working an 8.5 hour day, getting paid for 8. They essentially get a half an hour unpaid lunch. Doing some research and looking around, I find that we're finding, my research shows me that competitive jobs don't have that extra half an hour. They eat lunch and get paid for lunch. So I had asked the committee if we could waive that half an hour and adjust their work day to an 8 hour day, and of course get paid the same salary. It sounds like there's some support for that. I don't know if there's further discussion to be had on it. But it's in the interest of keeping our workforce keeping current with the times. It's a very competitive market, and I want to do what I can and fight for some benefits for those guys.
Thank you. Did anybody else have any comments they wanted?
Well, I just
Make
want to
on
say,
that, yeah.
I appreciate Mike, you looking into this and being responsive to the employees, and I think it's appropriate to support them in this, and I think it's definitely appropriate for them to get a half-hour paid, lunchtime. So I'm supportive.
Agreed.
I'm as well.
Yeah. I am as well, and to be clear, it doesn't add to our budget or anything for the year. It's just adjusting their hours.
When will that start? If we're gonna go ahead with it.
When do you want to start?
Does it have to be a payroll adjustment, so should it be next payroll?
It won't be a payroll, right? Adjustment? It's just the
Oh, it might be hours on
is
there.
just changing?
Hours on the payroll?
No, they're still getting 8 hours.
Still
Hours
the
aren't
same amount of
changing.
hours. Their day is just short.
I was just
by-
trying to time it to a date, but
8 hour
it
day
needs to
instead of
be
8.5.
ASAP.
Yeah.
right? Effective immediately?
Yeah, I guess effective as of Monday?
Next Monday.
Perfect.
So I'll write a resolution and we'll add it, or, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So can I have a motion to approve Resolution 2023-123, adjusting it to an 8-hour day effective on Monday,
16.
the 16th?
No.
No.
15.
Sorry, the 18th.
The 18th.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can we have a roll call?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Mr. Dendis?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mayor Casper Bloom?
Yes. Moving on to unfinished business. I don't see anybody from the Environmental Commission here.
We talked about this at our last meeting too.
Yeah, did you want to add, or,
No, I mean,
Are
I
you-
think it's pretty much the same as when Rosemary and Leo were here last month, or 2 months ago, I guess at this point, or was it last? I don't really remember. But and I know Jenna, you emailed Rosemary maybe before or after, but it's the same. And I was just doing the math, right? So we have the 16,000, and I feel like this is probably just really planting the seed for next year for budget, right? So I think you have all this documented. The one thing we're still waiting for, so this is the removal of the existing recycling shed and replacing it, because if you have been to the recycling shed recently, you know that it's definitely due a new one, right? The stairs, and there's, I would argue that it's questionable and not safe in there most of the time, plus the ventilation is pretty poor. So the amazing hard work that the recycle committee has put in over the past few years, they've been able to collect in their clean community grant funds about $16,000 for the shed. So their proposal, just as a reminder, is to use those funds towards the replacement, the tear down and the replacement of the shed. Jason was able to pull an initial quote for the shed. I don't think we've received yet the tear down or the electric costs yet. I don't know if, is that still true?
we haven't gotten the tear down. I think we might have got the electric, but
Okay.
we definitely don't have the tear down yet.
Okay.
That's right, yeah.
So in order to have like a full comprehensive quote, we just need those last few pieces. We have up to $16,000 that could cover anything that involves that, you know, the removal, the replacement, and the hookups. The caveat is you can only use it can only cover up to 85% of the total bill, everything all included, 85%. So the township would just need to cover the remaining dollars. So if I use the $16,000 that we have, and we can only use up to 85% of that, then it's roughly like $2,400 that's not covered. That's really an estimate because we need to know the other components. The shed was below that, but I'm assuming with the removal, and I know Jason had a creative idea on how to potentially get rid of some of that stuff too. So I think once we have all in, we just submit that to you guys and then have that under consideration for the 2024 budget, right? But I would really encourage you guys to consider it because, I mean, Jason's there every month, right? So I'm sure he tells you what it's like. Mike, I know you've been there, and I think we've all visited at times, right? And keep in mind too, these are volunteers. I think they're doing a phenomenal job. They always have. They continue to do so. We have a lot of volunteers that come every month and do a really valuable service for the community. So I just think it's time, and we should be housing. That's where like the styrofoam palace is and all the collection, right? So we just need to make some improvements and give them a better facility. And they've essentially collected and covered most of the funds for it. So
The money's there in a grant already, I understand, from last month, right?
Pardon?
The money's already there, it's in a grant.
It's 16,000, but only 85% of the total bill can be covered by that
Right.
16. So
We gotta come up with 15%,
exactly, which is
$2,000, roughly.
roughly.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for the final dollar amount. So, but I mean, we've discussed this in the recycling team numerous times, and they understand that it really needs to wait until we have a 2024 budget. So we could probably take this off. Maybe I just want to keep repeating it, right? Because I think you guys know, but I just want to make sure that it gets highlighted for next year. So hopefully we can, get moving on it.
No, I
Yeah.
think it's important.
Yeah, I do too. And I guess we got a quote for $1,300 to disconnect the lights, so that's not too awful. Yeah, but
No.
so it's still the takeaway, like you said. Yeah, we got to
It's
figure
probably
that out.
roughly, I would say like $2,000-3,000 that the township
Yeah.
would need to cover. Okay.
And
That's
and
pretty
that
much it.
clean community is like very strict what you can use
Yes.
it for, right? Like you can't use it for recycling
Correct.
even.
It's not
Yeah.
like if we don't use this, we're gonna have like 15 other projects to put it for. We really, it doesn't work that way. So you're right. And it's a really great thing to do for the community.
Okay. Yeah, we'll keep it on the agenda. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah. No. Thanks, Rosemary and team. Right.
Mhm.
They,
Yeah.
they do a great job.
They
So.
do.
And Tara, it's gotta wait for 2024 because of the grant funding?
I mean, to be honest, no, it doesn't. If we were running favorable this year, Dante, I would say, I just know it's always kind of hard to get a gauge on how we're doing, and it's, we don't necessarily want to spend ahead if we don't have it necessarily budgeted for. But if for some reason we do, I'm sure the Rosemary would be, fine with having that conversation. But just kind of knowing how budgets work, that's why I was suggesting to wait. But
Thanks.
if we're sitting on the money and we want to do it, then by all means.
Yeah. I think the big question is the takeaway. Jason
Yes.
thought he might be able to put it on municipal. Somebody might
like
take it.
bid it out like an auction or
Yeah.
something like that. So yeah, that was his creative idea,
Yeah.
which was great, right?
I think the frame is steel, so it might have value to one of those companies.
Yeah, that's a good
okay.
point.
That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Okay.
Okay, great. Before we go on to new business, thanks John for reminding me. I just wanted to recognize Renee. She's our Historic Preservation Committee secretary, and she's been there for 8 years? She's been there for a while. She was there when I was liaison last year. She's done a lot of good work. Very helpful running the meetings, or not running the meetings, but making sure the meetings ran smoothly and got the agendas out. And she also had to do, I know, some extra work being on historic preservation, looking at grants and stuff like that. And she's stepping down because I know it was a drive for her to come out here. And she has another job too. So we just wanted to thank Renee, and we will miss her as our secretary in Historic Preservation Committee. And
Thanks.
yeah, no problem. Thank you for the reminder. And we do have Amy Mills, who is our Ringo's advisory secretary, is now going to step into Renee's place. So moving on to new business, moving on to the rescue squad. You're up again, Mike.
You know what, I think we asked the rescue squad
we-
chief to come and he couldn't come.
Correct. I'm sorry. Yeah, I did ask the chief, Paul Hutchins, to come speak about it. He was unable to be here tonight. I thought Mike might be here, but he's not
So
either.
usually
So
So the only thing I've shared with the community is, and this isn't new news, that rescue squad it's struggling for members, and we're relying a lot on mutual aid with Lamberville and Flemington and Hopewell. Those rescue squads, or at least Lamberville and Flemington, they do bill. So if you see a Flemington ambulance come to your house, they're gonna bill you. It's just the way that this business is turned. They can't get members, so they have to pay staff, and they have to fund it somehow, and they're funding it through billing rather than tax money. our rescue squad has not done that. They're not talking about doing that, but they are struggling to stay afloat. Since I've been involved in the committee, I've had multiple meetings with the rescue squad and the surrounding towns to try to keep this relationship above water. John sat in on one, Jenna sat in on another. So their struggles are real. They're down to, if I'm not mistaken, 4 active EMTs right now to run almost 500 calls, 300 and some calls, I think it is. Don't quote my numbers, but I think out of that, Flemington and Lambertville are handling a third of them. So, we got some concerns with the rescue squad, staying afloat. So, if you know anybody who wants to be an EMT, please, encourage them. The training's free, but it does take time.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for, I know you and John too have had meetings and stuff, so thank you for meeting and keeping an eye on things and letting us know what's going on.
Does anybody have any feedback or thoughts on a rescue squad problem, like what towns are doing? Does anybody have any suggestions? Like some towns have gone out to just a complete billable service from a hospital. That doesn't seem like a viable option in East Amwell because we don't have enough calls for service. They can't make money. So I'm always open to hear if there's something I haven't thought of. Do you have something, Francis?
Yeah, the fire company has a fire district tax, and they get funding that way, as well as the stuff that comes from donations and things like that. It used to be, back in the dawn of time, that there was a certain amount of financial support that was given to the rescue squad by the township. I'm not sure that any of that is happening, or that people are aware that, they're not funded by taxpayer dollars, but they certainly do provide a phenomenal service, as with the 4-H fair a week or so ago.
Sure.
And for a lot of people, especially older ones, the $1,000 plus bill and the dunning letters that come to people from the Flemington, Bill You Whatever, and the others is a significant imposition on the residents. And I don't think that has been communicated, or the value of the rescue squad. And also, the people. If they're gonna come to your house because you've got a problem, then, they're not gonna let your dog out the front door to go down Wurtsville Road and run down whatever. And it's someone who, they learn the people who are the frequent flyers, and they help them. I can remember Russell Whitehead, and he got a lot of calls. The Flemington, it's a business for them. It's a business for Lambertville. There used to be squads down there that had fish fries, and they got run out of business, fire companies and stuff. But some sort of stable funding from the township, from taxpayer pennies, would be helpful, and then to try to interface or work with the schools, the high school, or others for, getting people to help them. These are amateurs and private people who do this out of the goodness of their heart, and quite frankly, there's not a whole lot of goodness of people's hearts going around the country, and I think that we should honor them and we should support them, and,
So what I've learned, to continue this conversation, it's not even a simple money problem, it's a personnel problem. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to run a paid ambulance service. The ones that are paying the members can't even get workers, they can't get EMTs. So sometimes in the Amwell Valley, they train a young person to be a volunteer, they get fully trained, and then they're offered $23, $24, $25 an hour to go sit in Hillsborough, or go sit in Flemington, or go sit in Lambertville, and oftentimes they take it, and I don't even know that I blame them. It's an opportunity for a young person to have a job, so it's hard. I agree with you. The old way of doing business, that seems to be a dying trend in the volunteer business. I think it's not an East Amwell problem. I think it's a national problem.
But if the retention rate would be improved by some funding that could pay a certain amount of money, maybe not $25 an hour, to EMTs, especially during the day or different times like that when most folks are working, that could be a way the community and the taxpayer dollars could support a local, cost-efficient service that's personable. And I think the public would support tax dollars going to them to be a line item.
So to give you a rough idea, because this is a conversation that we've had, these are round numbers, these aren't budget numbers, but it costs about $600 to $700 to staff a crew for 12 hours, a crew of 2 EMTs. That's using a $25, $20 an hour plus payroll taxes. That's about $3,000 a week for Monday through Friday, from 6 to 6, to have an ambulance paid. That comes out to be about $150,000, $160,000. That's a lot of money for East Amwell. It's just it's a really tough position, but we're talking about it because it's a real problem that may be coming around the bend that we're going to have to deal with as a township, and that's why I asked for any suggestion that we may not have thought of. But it's simply not just a money problem; it's a personnel problem. They don't exist. So if they can't get people at 23, 24, we're not going to get people at less than that. So it's a real problem. Go ahead. You have something?
Go ahead.
I know that Polytech, and I don't know how this works, okay, but it just popped into my head. Polytech has, Vernon County, they have, a program for healthcare. What, maybe if they would volunteer for.
So I'm familiar with that, but they're not 18. They have to be over 18 to ride the ambulance.
Okay, well.
On their
As
own.
an 18-year-old, maybe then you can get maybe credit.
Yeah,
for
it's a good suggestion for sure.
You know.
And I don't sit here and profess to have the answers. I just know that there's a problem that we're going to have to continue to talk about and figure out a pathway forward, whatever that's going to look like.
And hopefully somebody, if the rescue squad can be here too to give us more about
Yeah, we've
all
invited
around
them,
too.
but
Yeah.
I guess scheduling conflicts. And
Yeah.
I think it's parent-teacher night, right?
Yeah,
this is
sure.
a tough night for anybody
Yeah.
with a kid at East Amwell School. It's parent-teacher night.
Yeah.
So it's a tough night for the community for sure to be in 2 places.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a great reminder of how much we lost when we lost Margaret Case. Between Margaret and Joe, they handle almost all of them.
Yeah, I think it's just different names now, but the top 2 people probably handle 75-80% of the calls. This is a problem across the New Jersey for sure. Some counties are trying to get a backup ambulance at the county level. I think Bergen County started it, and somebody down south. So the county's funding an ambulance service that'll sit kind of neutral somewhere, and if the town can't get a responding crew, the county ambulance will respond in. I mean, we have mutual aid agreements now in place that will always get an ambulance, but it might not be Amwell Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to scare anybody and think
Yeah.
they're not going to get an ambulance. I'm just telling you that, it might not be Amwell Valley, because I think Flemington and Lambertville are probably handling about 1/3 of their calls right now. Yes,
Can you hear me okay?
of course.
If you were to follow the suggestion of funding $150,000 a year with East Amwell tax dollars, what you are in effect doing is saving insurance companies $150,000 a year and foisting that on the East Amwell taxpayers. Because, as I understand it, most of these ambulances take whatever insurance coverage the person they transported has, and don't pursue any leftover.
That's what I'm told for the
And
most
that's
part.
what I
Yeah.
was told when I
Yeah.
was sitting up there. And so if you say, well, we're going to pay the ambulance squad, you're taking our tax dollars to, in effect, benefit the insurance companies, because if we're paying for it, the insurance companies aren't. And that just doesn't make sense to me. If we're gonna go to a pay system, and I'm not necessarily adverse to that, people have to bear in mind that these pay systems aren't necessarily onerous on the residents if the rescue squad is simply taking whatever the transported person's insurance company will pay.
I agree with that. So when I throw out a number like 150,000, that's just for manpower. That doesn't cover
Exactly.
supplies, equipment.
Yep.
The ambulances are $250,000 plus right now, which is this post-COVID world, I guess is what they say. But that's not a building, so you know, I think a squad like Flemington, their budget's like $1 million a year. I mean, $1 million for East Amwell is a third of the budget.
It's a third of our budget,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
a lot of
You know.
a lot of their supplies go bad. They have a shelf life. So it's not as though they buy these things and they keep them forever. Their supplies have a shelf life, so, and the supplies are expensive. So it's a very expensive proposition, and I would be very hesitant to foist that on the taxpayers.
So, and the reason this comes up in tonight and other nights, it's to let the residents know that there's conversations going on about this in the interest of, I don't maybe use the word transparency, but you guys should know what's going on in the community. And the rescue squad is part of our community. They are functioning at the moment, but we never know when that's not going to happen because they're very short-staffed. So we're discussing options and what that's going to look like. I don't want anybody to leave here thinking they're not going to get an ambulance because there are mutual aid agreements, but you may in the future start to see more Flemington, more Lambertville, and you may see a bill, and like Mr. Wolf says, that they're only going to bill your insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, and they typically only take what the insurance company pays. I don't know if they can give you a written agreement on that, but my experience in 25 years with Flemington, I don't think they've ever gone after a dollar that wasn't given to them by the insurance company. So, does anybody have a different opinion on that?
I can remember people here, they were over on our border, who had complained about getting $1,000 bill.
It probably would be $1,000 bill.
And they didn't have, and whatever it was, that they were coming after them for it. And most people have some form of insurance, but not all people do.
Yeah, I think they send out the letters. The medics have been billing if anybody's ever need their service. The hospital medics bill, it's a substantial amount of money. So it's just part of the conversation that goes on in East Amwell. Not a new problem, but an ongoing problem with all EMTs, and not only EMTs, fire services too. They're all struggling to get volunteers.
Mhm.
Have you approached the county about getting a floater ambulance?
No, but it is on my things to do, believe it or not. I just haven't made a
You
meeting
could
to
provide
do
them
it.
a place that they could park.
Yeah, the county would have to willing to start a service, and I don't know how they feel about that. But I would share with you that it's been done in other counties so far.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, for bringing this to our attention and keeping it on our radar. I'm sure if anything changes, you'll let us know. Like I said, hopefully someone from the rescue squad can be here too, so we can have a bigger discussion. I'm going to move on to the bills of the evening. Can I have a motion to approve the September 14th, 2023 bills of the evening?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Second, thanks.
Sorry.
That's okay. All in favor?
Aye. Mr. Dendis?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mayor Casper Bloom?
Yes. Moving on to administrative reports, we have we're trying to get a little more information out from now on, so that's why we have this broken down. We don't have anything from state police, and I was hoping Paul would be able to be here. Like I said, scheduling conflict with the rescue squad, so. Can I have a motion to approve the administrative reports?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So moving on to our correspondence, those are all attached. That includes that letter from Ms. Valera about how well summer playground went. I'm now going to, can I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We are now open to the public.
Bob Kirshner, obviously you've seen me before, 138 Boss Road, I'm a farm. I'm here to express some concerns in reference to my my neighbor who has a landscaping business, so RJM Landscaping, Robert Monahan. I attempted to get information from the zoning officer, Stephen Rosniak, and that was an exercise in futility. The concerns are that the positive piece is in mid-June, the junkyard was cleaned up. So that's a very good thing. I brush hog my fields, and this business is contiguous to mine. So I can easily see what's happening. There's really two businesses, in my opinion. There's a landscaping business in the front, and behind this pole barn is something automotive. God knows what it is. There are truck beds. At any given time, there's 10 to 12 vehicles, some licensed, some unlicensed. I don't know how to describe this. There's containers that you will see on a railroad car. There's a couple of those. I've noticed most recently there's a structure that's been built off the back of this pole barn which houses something. My concern is what's going on. I was told in May in an email from the zoning official that Mr. Monahan would have to apply for a variance. So when I emailed him about a week ago in reference to this, he said, no, he doesn't have to get a variance. And he alluded to how his predecessor, Fred Johnston, had a landscaping business, and how he was, my terminology, going to be grandfathered in. This is in an email. So I responded in an email asking for some specifics. Got nothing. I called the planning board, spoke to the secretary, and she said that Mr. Rosiak indicated that there was a document which would allow him to store his equipment. All right. Question number one. Is there a document? Can the public see the document? I told you all this to ask the question. I won't get an answer from the zoning official. Well, where I'm going with this, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Where I'm going with this is, it should be stipulated in writing what he can and cannot do, in my opinion. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you for telling us the story. I would suggest this is something that that you can answer. I don't know if there's a document. I don't know.
As far as I
what you
know,
can
this
see.
is an ongoing matter that Mr. Rosniak's handling, and I understand there may have been some violations issued to the property owner. And I'm not comfortable with the committee commenting on what's really an ongoing zoning enforcement matter. You're certainly free to Oprah any information that's out there. My understanding, the last contact I've had with Mr. Rosniak was over a month ago, and that this situation was being handled by him, that he was addressing the issue of the landscaping business, that he was addressing the issue of the truck bodies and the parts that were in the yard that you'd complained about. And as far as sitting here tonight, my understanding was that this was being handled on the zoning level. So I don't know if anyone on the committee is in a position to answer questions about an ongoing zoning investigation that's being handled by our zoning official, but I'm certainly willing to follow up with him and see what the status is.
Okay, if I understand what you just said, you would follow up with Mr. Rosniak to,
Tomorrow morning.
okay. Fine.
Okay.
Is there any way I can get some feedback?
Um,
Well, maybe you explain what an Oprah request is. I think maybe
Yeah.
you didn't hear that.
I think we have your contact information. What I'll do is I'll convey what I learned to you. How's that? Because it
Very
seems to me
good.
you're not getting answers from the zoning official, which is why you're here.
That's right.
So if, I have no problem with contacting him and finding out what the problem is, because you're entitled to information and answers.
There's multiple concerns here. I've been in touch with the DEP. Mr. Monahan has extended his parking area to within 10 feet of a stream. The buffer is 50 feet. I've talked to the DEP officer, for lack of a better term, and she's doing an investigation and is going to deal with this. My concern is the stream is on my property as well. He's got vehicles that are parked within 10 feet of the stream. I can't imagine these vehicles have anything to do with the landscaping business. I have a second concern, and this leads me to a question. I don't get answers when I talk to Mr. Rosniak. It's like talking to the wall. When I went to see him about the junkyard, I made him aware that there were structures on my property. And he said he knew that Mr. Monahan wanted to do some additional work. But he didn't have a survey. And he wouldn't approve any additional work without a survey. I know he did get a survey, and I'm assuming he did some additional work. But preceding all of this, Monahan put these huge concrete block structures, one of which is on my property line. So point blank, I said to Mr. Rosniak, I said, did Monahan get a permit for these structures? No answer. I asked him what the setbacks were. No answer. And then he said to me, it doesn't matter, we don't deal with property line disputes. Pardon my ignorance. I'm missing something here, and I don't think I'm brain dead. The question is, was he required to get a permit? Because I never got an answer. If he was required to get a permit, the structures are illegal. I never got an answer. Can somebody find out whether Monahan was required to get a permit for his structures?
I'd again say to file an Oprah request.
I'm sorry?
File an Oprah request.
I'm sorry, Jenna.
File an Oprah request.
What does that mean?
It's an Open Public Records Act that you're entitled to have information, and it's a sheet of paper you'd fill out, and you'd reference the block and lot number and ask for what information you're seeking.
How do I go about doing that?
It's on our website.
I can send you the form
Yeah.
tomorrow morning. I'll send you the form tomorrow morning.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you for raising it to our attention. I appreciate Frank's willingness to reach out tomorrow to get information for you.
If I may add, it's not that we're not concerned about your complaint. It's just an ongoing legal matter that we can't weigh in on, and that's our attorney. And he, you know, I think he told you the same thing. I have compassion for what your problem is, and it doesn't seem like it's working fast enough. But anything we say from here could derail any possible things that's coming down. So I think that we'll leave it at that and
some-
let the lawyer.
I understand you're represented by counsel also, correct?
Yeah, I can,
So,
I've been doing real estate part-time for 30 years. So I'm not your typical layperson. And I also have counsel who knows something about land use. But I don't claim to be omnipotent. That's why I'm here.
And the lawyer can help you with the Oprah. Your lawyer can help you with your Oprah too.
Okay?
Yeah.
Quite candidly, I'm going to say the obvious, and I know it's a public forum. This is a match made in heaven. You got Robert Monahan, who doesn't care what the ordinances are. And in my opinion, you got a zoning officer who has no interest in enforcing them. That's an opinion.
Well,
Understood.
I can tell you that the committee intends to make sure that laws are enforced, so we appreciate you bringing information to our attention.
You folks have been nothing but helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Francis?
Motor skills of an old person. Francis Gavigan. The internet was kind enough to joggle my memory about the Flemington Raritan Rescue Squad and the billing practices going back to February 3rd, 2016, because that's when Flemington Raritan became the primary for Raritan Township, and it was taken away from East Amwell and
Okay.
Quakertown and Clinton. And part of it had to do with the discussions, and Flemington Raritan at the time says they charged $800, bills $800 per transport. I'm sure that's up. And the committeeman, Michael Mangan, said, well, let's say insurance pays you $500 of that. Do you seek the balance of the payment from the patient? The article didn't say that. And Hubsher, who was the Flemington Raritan, says, the squad's required by state law to send out 3 billing notices for, I guess, the difference. But they don't aggressively pursue payment, because the senior citizens who were at the meeting who didn't want it to change had gotten these bills, like their regular medical bills, that you owe this $300, and they were paying, thinking being they have to, as opposed to somebody who said, I ain't going to.
I understand.
Anyway, so it'd be interesting to update to see what their current things are, but there's a state law that they send these notices out, so hopefully the public knows, well, if they get a bill beyond their insurance, they don't necessarily have to pay it. So that's that. In reference to what the gentleman was just speaking about, when I bought my property in '95, there was a blue shed on it. It was on my property, but it was the neighbor's. Property lines are plus or minus 20 feet is what they informed me about, which wasn't the case. They had to, at that time, and the EADA was running it, they had to go to the Board of Adjustment for a variance. And what they were told was, well, it's been here for whenever and whatever, so it can stay. But they had to, when they wanted to add other sheds, meet the setback requirements that are front and center in our zoning law, I think 10 feet off the property line, and things like that. There is a mechanism for the notices to say, you've got something and you've gotta do something. And I think, Frank, the size requirement is if it's over 100 square feet, it's 10 by 10, then it's a building permit kind of thing. And I have no idea how big these cinder block or cement things are. But we do have a history in East Amwell of people doing what they feel like adjacent to streams, and there not being any consequences or any enforcement. So it may not be, you know, the West Amwell's enforcement officer who's wanting to do it, but there is probably a legal mechanism that you might explore with them when you talk to them tomorrow morning about if this is a notice and this is a variation, and for when people were being pursued for having cut down trees, they were using the aerial maps for all of Google Maps and other kinds of things to see how many years back was it. So it should not be that onerous an effort for somebody to figure out what's what. But it sounds, and unfortunately they don't live next door to me, it seems like the township and the taxpayers are getting a three-finger salute. Read between the lines. And unfortunately, that gentleman lives next door to them. The blue shed that was on my property, it finally fell down along with the dead and dying trees and is gone. But, you know, there are mechanisms that are in zoning law and that an individual should not have to litigate privately. It's not a boundary dispute. It's an encroachment on their property. And that was the information that was provided to me, and the East Amwell, you know, Board of Adjustment dealt with it as a simple, hey, we've got a thing, you're not supposed to do this. It didn't go the way I wanted, but I lived with it. You know, good fences make good neighbors, but it wasn't a cement thing. And there should not be to where people have to come into township committee meetings month after month after month trying to get something that's a code enforcement issue. You might want to, Frank, when you talk to him tomorrow, you might want to loop Maria into the loop, the township clerk over there. You know, it's amazing how when there's more than one person in a conversation or engaged with something that somebody's memory improves. That's it. And
Thank you.
hopefully, you know, the bottom line is, I can forward you this article from 2016.
I'm familiar with their processes. That nothing's really changed. They're not.
Yeah, it's
billing
just
anybody.
that state law says they bill 3 times. And the reality is, people, you don't have to pay it unless you feel so obliged or can afford it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Judy Adams, I'm an East Amwell resident. Several months ago, we had a lot of police activity when we were having cars that were stolen, finding dead bodies in the creek and everything. And I know, John, you were going to work with the state police and see if you could get us some updates rather than getting all this information on Facebook, which is sketchy information is best. Have you been able to get anywhere?
Not as far as information about dead bodies or anything that is alarming, but there's an open invite to the folks over at Kingwood. Mike and I have both spoke to representatives over there. Aside from catalytic converter thefts, periodic, not ongoing,
Okay.
there really, you know, there really didn't seem to be a whole lot of information that
Okay.
was necessary to pass on to
All right, it
the
just
rest.
seemed very quiet. I know when we heard the rumor about the dead body down in the river by us, Linda called up the state police and said, yeah, we found somebody. And it was like, well, that would have been nice to know because it's kind of in my backyard. But, you know, it never materialized into anything else.
Right.
I would suggest that the state police would, if it was a crime and they were concerned for your safety, they would have notified you in the area. It wouldn't have been uncommon. It's not uncommon for folks maybe to pass away and be found, you know, on the side of the road. I mean, it may sound odd from your life, but
Yeah.
I've been a police officer a long time. It's not the craziest thing that happens, believe it or
Okay.
not, and nobody knows about it.
Okay.
Yeah, if
I
it's-
would suggest that what you read on Facebook.
Well, that's
Be
kind of,
very,
that's
very
not
careful.
a really good
Be
place
very
to get your
careful.
information, which
It
is
is
why
not.
we were looking for something a little bit more, from an authority that you could trust.
So here's like what John said. We both have been talking to the state police. Well, here's what I've learned. So where I work as a police officer, they have a computer system that charts everything by address, how many times you pull a car over on a road, officer activity. They apparently have a different system. They can't track. Like I can't call them up and say, how many tickets did you write on Manners Road? Their system is, they'd have to go in and by officer every day he worked and see if he wrote a ticket on Manners Road. The system that I'm familiar with, if you put in Manners Road, it says 55 stops were made on Manners Road in the month of September and 40 tickets are written. They don't have that system. So the data that I want, they can't give us.
Interesting.
And like John said, there is an open invite for their station commander or deputy station commander to come down. Well, fortunately, there's not much news in the law to share with East Amwell.
Well, now
you know,
that's a really good thing.
Yes, there was, and I called you right when a resident came to me about a stolen catalytic converter. They indicated it might have been like 5, and that might have been a little bit of an embellishment, maybe. You know,
was an
so
isolated
when we
incident,
do hear
apparently.
about things that seem like that's concerning, we do reach out, and if there was something that the public needs to know about, it's going to be the state police. They're going to let you know.
Okay.
Yes, do I wish we had this assistant station commander sitting here to answer that question? Of course. But they cover 10 towns in Hunterdon County, maybe out of Kingwood.
Yeah.
And if everybody asked him, that would be the guy's whole job. You know, a local police department where I'm familiar with, the chief went to every committee meeting and answered these questions with data that, hey, you're complaining about speeders on your road. Well, our guys spent 10 hours there, wrote 15 tickets, and nobody was going over a certain miles per hour. So we're in a good situation because we don't have much crime, but we're in a unique situation because we don't have that personal contact where somebody's going to sit here and answer our questions the way we like. But I do assure you, we hear most of the same information you hear, and when it's worth checking into, we do. And I haven't been dissatisfied with any answers I've gotten.
Okay.
You know, the only thing I wish for is when we get these speeding complaints, that I can call up there and say, I keep saying Manners Road because that's the last one. Like,
Right.
how many tickets did you guys write on Manners Road? They can't tell me that because of the type of computer system they use.
Yeah, you
But
see
that would
that
be
on
helpful, but-
514 and you see it going through the village. I mean, you watch these people come flying through the village.
I will tell you this, and we've had this conversation. If they set up a selective assignment patrol, for example, on Manners Road, the last time they did it, they made 6 stops for vehicles that were exceeding the speed limit. And unfortunately, they were all East Amwell residents. So, I mean, sometimes we're our own worst enemy here,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, no, but I know we travel 514 a lot, we're in the village a lot, and I mean, you're doing the speed limit and these cars come up and just blow past you and disappear, and it's like, oh, where is there never a cop when you see this?
That's life.
Yeah,
know.
well, that's life in the country.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
unfortunate, but thank you for that feedback.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Hello again.
Hello.
Rick Wolf, 21 Rynearson Road here in East Amwell. First, I went into the East Amwell website this week and was pleasantly surprised. It was reformatted. I think the reformatting was a very significant improvement. I think the new website is now more user-friendly than the old website. I don't know who did it, but whoever did it, I'd like to say thank you, because I think you did a terrific job. If it was you, Linda, thank you.
I had some input, but Civic Plus did it. We were due for an upgrade, and it was part of our package, so they did it. But I told them what style and some things to add and whatever. It still needs some work, cleaning up some old links that don't go anywhere and stuff like that. But I'm working on it.
It's very nice.
Thank you.
Great job, and thank you from someone who visits the website pretty much daily. I go in to see what's going on.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Second, Jenna, when you ran for Township Committee 2 years ago, you made some pretty significant promises to the residents. Mike and Dante, when you ran last year, you did the same thing. From what I've seen over the last 2 years, the three of you undersold yourselves. I just want to commend you for the work that you're doing. I think it's nothing short of spectacular. What you did with the budget this year is unbelievable. Given inflation and all the other pressures, to have a flat budget, unbelievable. Mike getting the $40,000 grant for the Kleinschmidt cleanup, that's great. I mean, it's really great. Putting Al Marty on the planning board, getting him to be chair. He's really turned that planning board around in just a few months. He promised that he was going to keep East Dalmore rural, and from what I've seen, that's his goal. And I look forward to seeing you get it across the finish line. So I just want to thank you guys. I know how hard this is. It's sometimes 20, 30 hours a week or more. You're not getting paid for this. None of you takes a nickel. You get a lot of grief. You don't get a lot of pay. And I just want to thank you guys for the effort. I really do. I think it's terrific. And I look forward to you guys continuing to do great things. So, thank you.
I appreciate the kind words.
Anybody else from the public? Seeing no one else, can I have a motion to close to the public?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just before we end the meeting, I did want to say I've dealt with Steve Rosnick a lot recently, and I'm not dismissing what Bob said. I've had very good communication with him, and he's been responsive. I know he's very busy, but he gets back to me when I have issues. I know he got back to Dante and worked on some issues too. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I know Steve's very busy, but he has been responsive to me. So being no further business, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 8:50. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Apparently we don't exist.
Or not, it's good. Okay. Thank you.